Customer service isn't dead. It's just entered its surrealist period. There's a fine line between a helpful employee and a walking philosophical crisis, and these 49 individuals have completely erased that line with a crayon. Forget what you know about professional courtesy. These are 49 dumbest customer complaints you've heard. 1. During a home security system installation, the customer posed a simple question. Were the motion sensors pet-friendly? The technician, with the unflappable confidence of a man who has seen the dark underbelly of domestic life, assured him they were. Then he leaned in, adding, "The only exception is if your pet is grappling with a sudden existential crisis. If your dog starts frantically pacing while questioning the hollow nature of his own reality, then yes, that might set it off. It's a comfort to know your new security system is prepared for everything from a break-in to your golden retriever's philosophical awakening." 2. There are few disappointments in life as profound as receiving lukewarm soup. A diner, faced with this culinary tragedy, politely got his waiter's attention. "Excuse me, but this soup is cold," he stated. The waiter, instead of apologizing, approached the bowl with the intense curiosity of a bomb disposal expert. He gently touched the side, pondered for a moment, and his face lit up with a brilliant idea. "You know what? I think it's a gazpacho now," he announced. "It's like a surprise gazpacho." The customer, who had specifically ordered a hot bowl of clam chowder, was not a fan of this particular surprise party. 3. On a test drive, a man asked the car salesman a straightforward, adult question about the vehicle's fuel efficiency. The salesman, wearing a suit so shiny it could likely blind oncoming traffic, gave him a deeply profound look. He completely ignored the question about miles per gallon, placed a hand on the man's shoulder, and delivered this gem. "Sir, let me be clear. This is not a car that runs on miles. This is a car that runs on smiles. Considering current gas prices, that's probably the most expensive smile a person could ever have." The customer did not buy the car. 4. When a restaurant catastrophically messed up an entire table's order, the manager glided over to make amends. He didn't offer free dessert or a discount. Instead, he bowed his head slightly and said with immense sincerity, "I must deeply apologize. Our kitchen is currently experiencing a moment of profound existential chaos." He then beamed at the hungry customers. "We want to thank you for being a part of this messy, beautiful journey with us. People just wanted their burgers, not a starring role in an avant-garde dinner theater performance." 5. A tourist, trying to find some excitement in a sleepy little town, asked a local shopkeeper what there was to do for fun. The old man leaned over the counter as if sharing a state secret. "Well," he whispered, "mostly we watch the traffic light. It's been stuck on yellow for 6 years now. It's a whole drama, really. Is it about to finally give up? Is it a metaphor for our town's crippling indecision? We take bets on it every Tuesday." Apparently, the biggest thrill in town was a piece of malfunctioning infrastructure having a prolonged identity crisis. 6. A woman experienced a moment of pure, liquid-based terror. She spilled an entire large coffee directly onto her brand-new laptop. In a panic, she called tech support. The agent on the other end listened to her frantic story with a calm demeanor. After a pause so long she could hear the gears of genius turning, he unveiled his master plan. "Okay, I understand the situation," he said calmly. "Have you tried spilling a bag of uncooked rice on it? You know, to soak up the coffee." A truly bold culinary solution to a technological catastrophe. 7. A man found himself trapped in the 7th circle of hell, also known as a new phone's activation verification loop. After an hour of failure, he called customer support. The employee, having exhausted every logical solution in his script, let out a heavy sigh and offered one final, desperate piece of advice. "Sir, have you tried speaking to the phone in a firm but encouraging tone? Sometimes the new models just have a little performance anxiety and need some motivation." The customer was left wondering if he needed to buy his phone a tiny self-help book too. 8. As the airplane did its best impression of a roller coaster, a nervous passenger asked a flight attendant if this level of turbulence was cause for concern. The flight attendant, who was calmly securing a coffee pot while the cabin rattled around her, flashed a dazzlingly calm smile. "Oh, you only need to get worried if we start praying up front," she said breezily. "As long as you can only hear the pilot swearing, you're in perfectly good hands." It's amazing how the line between terror and reassurance can be so incredibly thin at 30,000 feet. 9. After ordering a coffee at a trendy cafe, a customer took one sip and politely told the barista it tasted like dirt. The barista, without a hint of shame, beamed with pride. "Exactly," he said. "That's our new single-origin earthy terroir blend. We're trying to capture the authentic taste of the ground it came from." He then leaned in and added, "So, thank you for the compliment." The customer was left holding a $5 cup of what was essentially filtered mud, wondering if he was supposed to tip for the authentic geological experience. 10. A man clearly in the doghouse for something was buying a large bouquet of roses from a local florist. Trying to make small talk, he asked the woman behind the counter, "So, how long will these last?" The florist, a pragmatic woman with dirt under her fingernails and zero time for nonsense, looked him up and down and replied instantly, "Longer than the apology you're probably buying them for." You just can't buy that level of brutal, efficient honesty. She's not just selling flowers, she's providing a reality check with every purchase. 11. A customer wandered through the vast, endless aisles of a massive hardware store for what felt like an eternity before finally spotting an employee. "Excuse me," the customer asked, relieved, "can you tell me where you keep the hammers?" The employee, wearing the store's vest like it was a costume he'd just found, looked around with a genuine sense of bewilderment, as if hearing the question for the first time. "You know," he confessed with a sigh, "I've always wondered that myself." And just like that, two lost souls were united in their quest for a simple tool. 12. After suffering through 45 agonizing minutes of terrible hold music, a furious customer was finally connected to a supervisor. Before she could unleash her full tirade, she complained bitterly about the wait time. The supervisor responded in a calm, soothing, almost zen-like voice, "Ma'am, we don't see the hold time as a delay. We see it as an opportunity for you to pause, breathe, and reflect on your day." It was the most condescending, infuriatingly brilliant piece of corporate spin she had ever heard. She didn't want a mindfulness session. She wanted to know why her internet was out. 13. A woman attempted to return a very sad, wilting houseplant to a garden center, explaining it seemed to be dying. The employee, a man who clearly took his job a little too seriously, took the plant pot from her. He held it up to his ear and listened intently for a few seconds, nodding gravely. He then turned back to the woman with a solemn look on his face and announced, "I'm sorry, but it's telling me that it feels smothered by your expectations. It says it just needs some space right now." She left without a refund, but with a whole lot of guilt about her relationship with a fern. 14. A man went to pick up his pre-booked rental car, ready to get on with his trip. The agent at the counter cheerfully handed him the keys and said with a huge grin, "And you got a fun one. This one has a special little quirk where the horn goes off every single time you make a right turn." He patted the man on the back. "It really keeps things interesting for you and everyone else on the road." This wasn't a feature. It was a rolling public disturbance, and he was now its designated driver. 15. At a local farmer's market, a customer pointed to a pile of pristine-looking tomatoes and asked the old farmer if his vegetables were organic. The farmer took a long, slow chew on a piece of straw, looked the customer in the eye, and said, "Well, I'll tell you this. My plants listen exclusively to classical music and receive daily verbal affirmations." He shrugged. "If that's not organic, then I don't know what is." You have to admit, those are probably the most emotionally stable and well-cultured tomatoes you will ever eat. 16. A guy was in a tech store trying to buy a new computer mouse and asked an employee which model had the best ergonomic design for long-term use. The employee didn't point to a product. Instead, he held up his own hand in a grand, dramatic gesture. "The human hand," he declared, "is the only truly ergonomic design. Everything else is just a desperate, flawed attempt to replicate perfection. He then looked at the customer and suggested, maybe you should just use your finger on the screen. A bold sales strategy. Convince the customer they don't need your products at all. 17. A man, new to the area, walked into the DMV and asked the clerk at the counter what the process was for getting a residential parking permit. The clerk slid a pamphlet across the counter without making eye contact and said in a monotone voice, Step 1. Surrender your concept of time. Step 2. Embrace the eternal loop of bureaucracy. Step 3. Good luck. The man was never seen again. Legend has it, he's still in that same waiting area, having fully embraced Step 2. 18. A woman at a bakery bought a croissant that was advertised as freshly baked, only to find it was as hard as a brick. She took it back to the counter and pointed this out. The young employee took the pastry, inspected it from all angles, and said with a thoughtful shrug, I don't think it's stale. I think it's just ambitious. He held it up. It has aspirations of one day becoming a crouton. She didn't get a new croissant, but she did get a front row seat to the world's most pathetic inspirational story. 19. While visiting a historic battlefield, a tourist approached one of the guides who was dressed in a full, period-accurate soldier's uniform. What did you guys typically eat back then? The tourist asked innocently. The guide, staying completely in character, stared off into the middle distance with a haunted look in his eyes and replied, Mostly we ate disappointment. And on a good day, a very tough piece of hardtack. He paused. The disappointment was usually easier to chew. That's one way to make history come alive. 20. A man trying on a suit that was clearly too tight for him asked the tailor, Do you think I can get away with this? The old tailor, after a long, thoughtful pause, looked him in the eye and said, Sir, you've been getting away with that haircut for years. I think the suit will be fine. It was a brutal, unprompted attack on his personal style, wrapped in a strange sort of encouragement. He bought the suit out of pure shock. 21. You can always spot a career bookstore employee. They have a certain look, a mix of literary wisdom and profound exhaustion. A customer, clearly on a quest for self-improvement, approached one such employee and asked, Excuse me, where can I find your books about happiness? The employee didn't even crack a smile. He simply pointed to a single, glaringly empty space on a nearby shelf and said in a monotone voice, We had one, but someone bought it. The finality in his tone suggested they would not be restocking it anytime soon. 22. In a national park visitor center, a tourist asked the park ranger the question they probably get 100 times a day. Where's the best place to see some bears? The ranger, clearly tired of the standard safety warnings, decided to offer some more practical, albeit terrifying, advice. He pointed at a large map of the park and said, Honestly, they can be anywhere. But the absolute best way to find one is to walk around smelling very strongly of bacon and poor life decisions. You can't say he's wrong. 23. When a woman brought her malfunctioning tablet to a tech store, the technician didn't run diagnostics. Instead, he asked, What kind of music do you listen to on this? The woman, confused, said, She liked a lot of sad, moody indie rock. The tech nodded knowingly. That's your problem right there, he explained. You've made the tablet depressed. Its processor is too overwhelmed with sorrow to function. Try a playlist of upbeat 80s pop for 48 hours and call me back. 24. A guest staying at a slightly run-down hotel called the front desk to report a flickering light in his bathroom. He was expecting them to send up maintenance. Instead, the employee on the other end responded with an unnerving, spooky calmness. Sir, I wouldn't fight it. The room is just trying to communicate with you. There was a pause before he added, Now, if it starts blinking out SOS in Morse code, then you should probably call us back. Suddenly, a simple electrical issue had turned into the opening scene of a horror movie. 25. At a small coffee shop, a customer noticed a fly doing leisurely laps in the communal milk pitcher. She discreetly pointed it out to the barista. The barista calmly walked over, fished the fly out with a spoon, and gave her a completely reassuring smile. "Don't worry about it," he said with the confidence of a physics professor. "He's a backstroker. All the germs stay on the bottom." The sheer, unshakable conviction in his deeply flawed understanding of both swimming and hygiene was arguably more disturbing than the fly itself. 26. The beautiful irony of smart technology is that it often makes us feel incredibly dumb. One woman, completely defeated by her new smart thermostat, called the helpline for support. After she spent 10 minutes explaining her technological woes, the employee on the line let out a long sigh of shared surrender. He abandoned all pretense of tech support and offered this sage advice. "Honestly, ma'am, sometimes it's just easier to put on a sweater." It was the ultimate admission that sometimes the best innovation is a piece of wool. 27. A power outage plunged a packed concert into darkness and silence. The lead singer grabbed a megaphone and told the anxious crowd, "Don't worry, folks, we have a backup plan." A moment later, a single stagehand walked to the center of the stage, took a deep breath, and started flawlessly recreating the sound of a full drum kit and electric guitar using only his mouth. He was surprisingly good, but it wasn't exactly the high-voltage rock show the audience had paid to see. 28. "Excuse me, where are the staplers?" It was a simple question in an office supply store. The employee, however, got a distant philosophical look in his eyes. "A stapler," he said softly, "is merely a tool that binds together pages that wish to be free, an instrument of forced conformity." He then snapped back to reality and pointed. "You'll find them in aisle 7, right next to the paperclips of quiet desperation." This guy wasn't just stocking shelves. He was fighting a war for stationery liberation. 29. During an eye exam, the optometrist was flipping between lenses and asked the classic question, "Okay, which is clearer, number 1 or number 2? The patient squinted and said, "Honestly, they both look about the same." The optometrist paused dramatically, leaned back in his chair and said, "Precisely. It's a perfect metaphor for the illusion of choice in modern society, isn't it?" The patient left with a new prescription and a mild sense of philosophical dread. 30. A bakery customer pointed to a cake that was tilting slightly to one side, looking a bit lopsided. "Is that one fresh?" she asked. The employee behind the counter didn't miss a beat. She smiled warmly and said, "Absolutely. It was born this morning, went through a minor identity crisis around noon, and is now fully embracing its asymmetry." With a backstory like that, how could you not buy the cake? It wasn't just dessert, it was a hero on a journey of self-acceptance. 31. Is the chef's choice vegetarian? A woman at a diner asked her waiter. It seemed like a simple yes or no question. The waiter looked around conspiratorially, leaned in close and whispered, "Well, it's vegetarian in spirit. The ingredients once coexisted peacefully in the garden, right up until the great skillet uprising of the lunch rush." Wisely, she decided to just order the fries, avoiding any food with that much traumatic backstory. 32. "Ma'am, for this price, you could probably find a real cow that would carry your stuff for you." This was the unfiltered, brutally honest response from an employee at a high-end department store. The customer had committed the grave sin of asking if a $5,000 handbag was made of genuine leather. Forget luxury goods. This sales pitch was for hiring your own personal bovine assistant. That's a level of customer service you just don't find anywhere else. 33. While browsing a dimly lit antique shop, a customer pointed to a particularly dusty and creepy-looking doll sitting on a shelf. "Is this thing haunted?" she asked, only half joking. The owner looked at the doll, then back at her, and a slow, deliberate smile spread across his face. "For that price," he said smoothly, "we guarantee it's at least deeply troubled." He wasn't just selling an antique. He was selling a conversation starter with emotional baggage. 34. A man brought his dead smartphone to an electronics repair shop, hoping for a quick fix. "How long will this take?" he asked. The technician, who had the aura of a tech guru, barely glanced at it. "It's not really broken," he explained calmly. "It's just taking a vow of silence. Sometimes technology needs to disconnect and find its center, you know?" He then offered the customer a stick of incense and walked away, leaving the man to ponder his phone's spiritual journey. 35. The dreaded check engine light, a universal symbol of impending financial doom, had illuminated a woman's dashboard. She did the responsible thing and brought her car to a mechanic. The mechanic, a man of few words and even fewer diagnostic tools, looked at the glowing light for a moment. He then reached into his toolbox, pulled out a small piece of black electrical tape, and firmly stuck it over the light. He stood back, admired his handiwork, and said, "Problem solved. That'll be $50. This wasn't just a repair. It was a profound philosophical statement. The problem wasn't the engine, you see. The problem was the light telling you about the engine. 36. Inside a high-end art gallery, where the walls were white and the prices were criminal, a woman was studying a large splatter painting. She cocked her head, confused, and asked a nearby attendant if perhaps it had been hung upside down. The attendant, a being of pure artistic pretension, adjusted their glasses. "Orientation," they said with a sigh, "is a capitalist illusion. The art sees you the way it wants to see you." The woman, now thoroughly intimidated by a piece of canvas, bought it immediately. Nobody wants to get into an argument with a painting that is actively judging their worldview. 37. A customer at a restaurant, blessed with the curse of literacy, noticed a typo on the menu where "soup of the day" was spelled "soup of the day." He pointed it out to the manager, expecting a thank you. Instead, the manager leaned in with an air of intellectual superiority. "Oh, that's not a typo," he explained. "It's a minimalist culinary poem, a commentary on the very essence of liquid nourishment. It's supposed to make you think." The customer was no longer sure if he was ordering lunch or attending a postmodern literature seminar. 38. Dining at a seaside restaurant, a family cautiously asked their waiter the million-dollar question: "Is the calamari fresh?" The waiter, a master of wielding the technical truth like a weapon, beamed at them with absolute confidence. "It was fresh," he chirped, "when we froze it." He delivered this line not as a confession, but as a delightful fun fact, as if he'd just solved a riddle that nobody had asked. In one sentence, he managed to be both completely honest and spectacularly unhelpful, confirming all their fears with a smile. 39. An art student full of hope and ambition walked into an art supply store and asked an employee where to find a blank canvas. The employee, a man who looked like he'd been in a paint explosion, gestured vaguely towards a wall of white squares. "They're over there," he said, then paused, his eyes filled with a deep, artistic sorrow. "But are you sure you're ready for that kind of pressure? That canvas is so white. It's just so full of potential. Honestly, it's terrifying." He had successfully turned a simple shopping trip into a full-blown existential crisis. 40. After discovering a single, unwelcome hair on his pizza, a man called the restaurant to complain. The employee on the other end of the line listened to his complaint with the serene calmness of a Zen master. When the man finished his story, the employee asked a simple yet profoundly unsettling question. "Okay, I hear you, but did you eat it?" That one sentence masterfully shifted the blame. It was no longer about the restaurant's hygiene standards. It was a psychological experiment about the customer's own dark, cheesy life choices. 41. While trying on a new pair of shoes, a customer remarked to the salesman that they felt a little too tight. The salesman didn't miss a beat. "Of course they do," he said with authority. "They don't trust you yet." He looked the customer dead in the eye. Try talking to them. Tell them about your hopes, your dreams, maybe your childhood. He then turned and walked away as if this was the most normal piece of advice in the world, leaving the man alone to begin therapy with a pair of size 10 loafers. 42. The sacred silence of a library was shattered by a person letting out a small, involuntary sneeze. The librarian at the main desk slowly looked up over the top of her glasses, her eyes like daggers. She glared at the offender and said in a voice that could curdle milk, "If you're going to be spreading plagues, please take it to the biography section. Those people are already dead." It was a masterclass in passive aggression and a chilling reminder that librarians do not mess around. 43. A guy was browsing the kayaks in a sporting goods store when an overly eager young employee bounced over to him. "Pro tip," the employee offered, completely unprompted. "If you're worried about the kayak tipping over, just drill a few small holes in the bottom. That lets the water out just as fast as it comes in." He smiled proudly. It's just science. It was, in fact, the science of sinking, delivered with the unshakable confidence of someone who has never actually been in a boat. 44. At a tire shop, a customer was taken aback by the high price he was quoted for a new set of tires. When he questioned the cost, the manager leaned in conspiratorially. "Sir," he explained in a low, serious voice, "you're not just paying for the tires, you are paying for the stories these tires will one day tell. You're paying for the legends of the road trips they will take you on." It was a bold strategy, attempting to sell 4 pieces of rubber as an investment in the man's future mythology. 45. A customer, driven to the edge by his agonizingly slow computer, called the IT help desk. After listening to the man's frustrated rant, the tech support guy offered a new perspective. "Your computer isn't slow," he said, in a calm, meditative tone. "It's just practicing mindfulness. It chooses to process each of your requests deliberately and with great intention. You should try it sometime." With one sentence, he fixed nothing but brilliantly insulted the customer's entire lifestyle. 46. When a customer at a fast food joint politely mentioned that the burger he ordered was missing the pickles he'd specifically asked for, he expected a simple apology. Instead, the teenage employee leaned over the counter, inspected the burger, and then looked the customer dead in the eye. "We're actually doing you a favor," he said with the total conviction of a zealot. "Those things are full of vinegar." He wasn't just a burger flipper, he was a culinary crusader, saving the public one pickle at a time. 47. A man approached the library reference desk with a slightly nervous energy and asked the librarian if she had any books on the subject of paranoia. The librarian, without missing a beat, leaned forward, narrowed her eyes, and whispered back, "They were right behind you, but they just left." She didn't give him a call number. She gave him the full, immersive experience. He left with no books, but with a brand new reason to look over his shoulder. 48. In a very fancy home decor store that smelled like money and pretension, a man asked if a particular lamp came in any other colors. The employee stared at the glowing orb for a long, contemplative moment. "It comes," she said softly, "in whatever color your soul currently resonates with." She then looked at the customer with pity. "Right now, for you, I'm sensing a lot of beige confusion with a hint of quiet desperation." It was the most beautifully insulting way to say, "No, this is the only one we have." 49. A diner was horrified to find a small, sharp piece of plastic in his salad. He discreetly called the waiter over and showed it to him. The waiter's face, instead of showing concern, lit up with excitement. He examined the piece of plastic closely and exclaimed, "Congratulations, you found the prize." There was a dramatic pause before he added, with a shrug, "Unfortunately, the prize is just the piece of plastic." He managed to turn a health code violation into a deeply disappointing game show. So, that was our collection of 49 professional brain malfunctions. But we know this is just the tip of the iceberg, because the world is full of these geniuses. Now it's your turn. Head down to the comments and write us point number 50. The single most baffling, hilarious, or idiotic thing an employee has ever said directly to you. Don't be shy. And while you're typing, clicking that subscribe button ensures you're first in line for our next collection of questionable human interactions.